Well, namaste to all my compadres across the world, maybe even beyond. This is a very momentous event to first of all be here and sharing collectively with all of us on this 24th Congress of Science, Information, Spirit that has been a deep insight and inspiration to dearest Constantine. Well, the seeding that began well over 2.5 decades ago. So, dearest Constantine, I thank you for this continuum, and then to bring together and orchestrate your very fine architecture of your team. Dear Mitya, Dimitri, Irina, all those who are collectively sequencing to make this not just a Congress, but rather what do we ultimately take inward, utilizing our science, utilizing the deep connect, and then transforming this for the benefit of all life. All life. Well, this whole event here that has now crossed boundaries across the world, and Constantine knows how we have collaborated together over decades across continents, multiple platforms, integration of not only the science of human health and well-being, but then we look at elements like water, measurement of air, the sequencing to bring forth vitality in all these areas, because in essence, we are based on air, water, and light. So these fundamental characteristics of our elements has a deep insight of how they blend and merge together in a symphony across our cell architecture. And this dance and this symphony that we are able to record with the generation of the GDV, the generation of the BioWell now, and into a cloud platform so that it has the capacity, the propensity to reach multiple platforms and raise the bar so that we awaken to live our highest purpose. Well, let's just pause for that one moment. This event that took place in the early beginnings from 2020, up to now, here we are in June, now going into July, has had huge outcomes in terms of how humanity, from individual to the collective, is being directed to look inward and ultimately ask the big question, what's my purpose of being here? Why am I here? What do I bring forth that can bring out a collective intention? And what is that collective intention? Life is here to thrive, isn't it? We are granted 50, 70 trillion cells. And when there is an imbalance in our ecosystem, well, it has an outcropping. And this outcropping has many tiers and many layers by which we can unravel and dissect, like the way we would unfurl the petals of an artichoke till we can get to the heart of the artichoke. So this emergence that has brought forth at the dawning of 2020 and still in continuum is about a informational pattern. And this informational pattern, because we are all information, everything around us, those seen, unseen, are all information. And when there is a irregularity in the sequencing of information, that's when event horizons that could be favorable or not as favorable to the system begin to emerge. So it was in early March that I was visiting Bhutan along with my family and some dear friends, 4 of us together. And in the process, we went to a cave where we had to walk through many mountain ranges to reach a place called Tiger's Nest. But what transpired here at Tiger's Nest with dear Padma Sambhava, and dear Padma Sambhava traveled from the southern part of India, went to Tibet, and this was like the 6th century. And during this time period, there was immense amount of action and activity that of discord, like we are experiencing right now. So to me, this became very, very essential to get to the cave where Padma Sambhava went and immersed himself into what we would call a sensory deprivation chamber, which means you touch deep stillness. And to touch deep stillness, you empty yourself. But surrounding was all the discordant elements of life that had fostered, manifested, exactly as what we are all witnessing around the world, especially if you were to turn on those broadcasting signals, digitalized broadcasting signals, and what do we get imprinted with? So this causes many fluctuations inside each one's inner psyche, which in turn then manifests into the outer world. Simply put, what is within us is perfection. The outer world can attain perfection only when the inner world inspires, guides, molds, and shapes the outer world. Isn't it? These are some of the fundamentals. So, having visited Padma Sambhava's cave and Tiger's Nest in Bhutan, this was in early March, I lay down on this big rock right at the base of the cave. And you know that we transmit information, we receive information, all information is always here. And when there is emptiness from within, information streams. And when information streams, where does it come and connect? Directly to the pineal connect. And the pineal connect sends out these signals that receive and transmit, receive and transmit. Well, this quote, discordant facet that has literally brought the human to a standstill has been the greatest gift to Mother Nature, because it has ennobled Mother Nature to revive and recalibrate. Because the deepest principle, let us make it very clear, if the human is extinct, nature will thrive. Now, do we need to go that route? Most of us would say no. Why do we want to take that route? There is something deeper. And this was an inspiration that inspired dear Mahatma Gandhi when he had his contemplations once a week, and he wrote some of his contemplations. In one of his transmissions, he writes, "In man, reason quickens and guides the feeling. In a brute, the soul lies dormant. Awaken the heart, you awaken the dormant soul." Keyword, awaken the heart, you awaken the dormant soul. What is the most powerful force of all the universe, of all the cosmos? It's love. That streams, that streaming touches one. It's already there, it is embedded, it is imprinted in all of us. We all came up as beautiful little photon particles that went and got seeded inside a beautiful egg. And from there, the evolution of light began. And from there emerges a beautiful little one, full, bubbly, dances, sings, expresses with such simple purity. That's all of us. All of us. No one is exempt of that. That is imprinted. It is integrated. It is interwoven into all of us. We are in the presence of a science that has the greatest gift of not only bringing a visual field to us, the science of bioelectrography, but more important, it is for us to utilize this as science of human beyond the word transformation, but we now emerge from matter body to light body, which is awakening all our cells within us to their full potential. Alexander Gurevich, a great physicist, 1940s, he made a reference about this cell communication, what he called by vectors. Vectors are streaks and domains that begin to interplay one cell to another. And these vector communications transmit. At that time, it was the speed of light. But now we look at the cell. Again, the cell is both the micro and the macro of life. And when we look at the integration of a cell, it is a series of tensegrity structures, which is what inspired architects like Buckminster Fuller. So these tensegrity structures are inherently within each and every one of us in all life forms. So when they receive information that is streaming, and it filters, permeates, that's light. And the light that comes through at a single beam then gets dispersed into the colors of the visible spectrum that we see, that we call the chakras or our energy centers. So we live from the inside out, but our educational system has reversed this direction, and hence we find ourselves still in a morphing stage where we ask deep questions. How is this doable? How is this possible? The moment we begin to address the non-linearity of life, we start emerging into a world, into a universe, into a cosmos that has been recognized by earlier, 6th century, dear Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, by the great wisdom teachers and adepts. Forget time, it's not about time here, but rather it is the transmission of the inherent intelligence that is present and of which we are an integral part. So are we here to create self-destruction? And or are we also here to evoke that which can raise the collective bar, so that the word in Sanskrit, it's called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means we are one family. We are one cell, which means all our life is guided and directed towards this sequential integration. In the sequential integration, ripples transmit. And this is waves and waves, what we would call constructive interference waves. And these constructive interference waves are a higher vibration platform. They not only draw lower vibration systems towards it, dissolve them, so that we create an evoked and a very brilliant life here for all. Well, that's the adaptation of the science of bioelectrography, which personal experience when I first met with dear Constantine over 2 decades ago at a conference where both of us were speakers. I asked Constantine later, after we were all engaged together and going out for dinner, I said, what inspired you to bring forth this science to the world? And he said, when you awaken to the realization that the most powerful force of all the universe is love, you are guided. Well, that was a language of the heart. That language of the heart then connects here. This is what Nicholas Roerich, another great being, also guided, directed, was inspired by. When all process emerges from here, the seat of the emerald green light that transmits, receives, we engage all across the world. So even the one who is the most discordant of all may go through iterations, but eventually you will come back to source. A simple wisdom saying, if you take a straight line and you project it infinitely, it will come back to its starting point. We know the source from where we come. Our journey is back to source. What's required of us is the detailed architecture and the detailed application so that we singularly, sequentially weave this membrane for life to thrive. That has been a deep insight during this, quote, lockdown period. I'm in India presently, I'm in Bangalore, and have been here after coming back from Bhutan, which was right about the end of the first week of March, and have been here since. Reflecting upon some very principled applications when you looked at the roads and there was not a person out there on the road, and you walked only, there were no cars, there was nothing, only those who had permits, and you only walked for essentials. So to me, this was also a grand moment of not just introspection or reflection. That's something which it's part of your daily weaving of life itself, to live in stillness, to touch stillness, to create that empty space and live in that empty space. This became even more a heightened principle of observation. That heightened principle of observation then evoked certain insights. And those insights, I did biowells on myself through various cycles, kept observing the movement, the sequencing of the energy centers, the size of the energy centers, because they are all amplitudes of frequencies. The thoughts we think is the world we create. So we also have a wisdom saying that says, think high thoughts, think of them day after day, moment after moment. If you stumble and fall, it doesn't matter, pick yourself back up, but keep that high vision. Keep that high vision arise, awake in front of you, so that all our thoughts, all our actions, even in the doing and the non-doing, are always integral. And that sense of integration and integral reinforced the deepest principle of saying, we are now ready to transmute from the body of matter to the body of light. In the transmuting from the body of matter to the body of light, there are certain key observations, there are certain key principles, and when these are adhered to, when they are formatted, when they are blended together in silence, in stillness, the amplitude of information magnifies. And hence, there is no definition inside of time or space that can contain you. We are a universe unto ourselves. There is a sloka exactly like that in the Isha Upanishad. I'll just recite one line, but it goes, Om Purnamada Purnamidham. And this in continuum says, this is whole, you are whole, all of you are whole. If I take something from the whole and move it somewhere else, the WHOLE remains. With this knowing, live every moment of your life focused, in peace and abundantly, enriching, inspiring, and empowering all of life. Well, this is actually the substance of what Krishna evoked, and with our dear friend, Karen Elkins, who is the founder of Science to Sage, another very evoked being who brings big picture events and condenses it, distills it into very poignant expressions. We've collaborated together to bring this PowerPoint so that the evolutionary transformation of what we are all in the direct immersion of now can be brought forth. So, with that, my thanks again to dear Konstantin, Dimitri, Steve, there in beautiful Colorado, and to all my, I would say, my family, brothers and sisters across the planet. We will now go and emerge into the PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint is here. There we go. So, you see the title, The Science of Light, being, from human to HUE-MAN. And the HUE-MAN, as we all can picture, is the light within us. The arrangement, the organization of this light is the very joy that resides when we tune ourselves to breath. Well, this is essentially the immersion that dear Krishna has, by guided intention, for probably 3, 4, maybe 5, 6, 7, who knows how many decades, forget counting, but the intention is this: when aspire with the high vision, so that may not a speck of doubt reside within you, and live that, exemplify it, with the integration that today we have with us, one of the most advanced sciences of the study of light. As we all know, we are all in this together. So again, dear Konstantin, a nice, big, hearty hug to you from here. So, we exploring light and bioelectrography. Wisdom teachers and guides across millennia provide insight-filled guidance towards fostering co-creative communities and ennobling life to thrive. Now, we know that we are all one family, and the word here, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, is exactly what that means. What we have just talked about, it may sound pretty far-fetched to many. However, when the mind and the kind and the nature of the mind strives to attain the high vision, which we referenced earlier, the lower vision disappears. And that is the essence of education. And that is also the essence of how We use the science of bioelectrography when we do our observations, our data compressions. We expand it and we look at it. It is all towards the inspiration, the enrichment, and the empowerment of each and every one. Keep that in focus. That is the focal point. Then life will thrive because the innate intelligence is already there in every cell. All that we are doing is being a conduit of expression that you can emerge. It's like going through a black hole and you come out. Well, that's sort of what takes place when you begin deep practices of breathing, which we will get to as we continue. So again, life is resplendent with color in all the various forms that we see our co-brothers and sisters. Then, of course, color sustains all of life from what we are expressed in, the light from the time we are in the presence of the sun, the presence of what we look through the eyes, what we eat, what we drink, in every facet, all the way from the full spectrum, utilizing all our chakras in their fullest of light. Then, of course, the most vital of all of them is water. Water, as dear Albert St. Georgi said, is the medium and matrix for life. And then we talked about frequency and vibration everywhere, isn't it? We see oxygen emission spectrums, we see hydrogen emission spectrums. These are all in a domain of a fractal universe that is constantly self-replicating in patterns that do not dilute, no matter how far you expand them or how you compress them. Hence, the macro, the micro is so integral, and that is so integral not only inside each and every cell, the response of the cell, but also in each and every breath, the in-breath, the space between, the out-breath, and the space between. So we see the universe is completely, it's a symphony of life. It's a total symphony of life. And this symphony of life, as this image of the human stretching out, is inspired by Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, the Vitruvian Man. The Vitruvian Man harnesses the principle of the golden mean. Look it up. The principle of the golden mean harnesses and activates our entire ecology towards self-organizing, self-replicating brilliance. Now, I use the word here. What's your tune? And, well, are we centered? So what is the tune? What is the harmonic? And of course, we've all come across this. We've seen in all the various approaches and our readings and our research and how we utilize the biowell and the technology of the bioelectrography, as you can see from these two earlier instruments. I mean, the early instrument of the big GDV is we are symphonies, we are waves. And when we are harnessed in the center, well, there we truly connect. And when you connect, you are tuned, which means there's nothing to do. Everything resides within you. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi said, do nothing, accomplish everything. Well, when you begin to express yourself from the core, which is the inside out, this is a natural outcome. And what does the biowell do? The biowell assists you to gain this insight. That, to Constantine, to myself, is the big picture of how science is then guided towards the service to society. Well, you got the microphase, and the microphase is getting into the detail, where you can see the sympathetic, parasympathetic system, you can see the nature of meridian flows, you can see the dimensions of energy flows in chakras, but also you can begin to see the phase transitions of the various fields when we look at the human energy pattern. Then, all this is, of course, seated in gratitude. Gratitude has a power that is unsurpassed. And we have this in a very beautiful expression that all life is a service. That service is bathed inside of love. Love is the response in every breath that guides you and takes you right to the core and right to the center. So the wisdom teachers from civilizations, this expression is sourcing the expression, honoring the divine within, because in each and every one of us resides that source connect. And it is guided right inside the womb. And all of us come inside the womb. We look at the mother, the female, is a cosmic divinity. We were all birthed from a cosmic divinity. So what does it mean to be HUE-MAN? In English word, human breaks down into two parts. Hu, meaning God, and man, meaning mind. In Sanskrit, the word mana is reference of the mind, the general mind. So we call it the mind of an ordinary person. So among the Sufis, the mystics, the sound hu is the sound that emerges from the heart, which is the supreme, which is source and our connection to the source. So the HUE-MAN is this connection to the source, and hence our chakras are no more than a cosmic antenna that connects us continuously in a receivership pattern, where these field waves, from magnetic waves to electric waves, and all these blend together in electromagnetic rhythms and gyrations, which we will get to. So we look at biological light, the term biophotons, combining the term bio meaning life and photon meaning the quanta of light. This recent finding established a new concept in biological light and provides very, very useful information. See, the inspirations of dear Constantine goes to generations because he has tapped in. He has tapped in from the great wisdom of great wisdom teachers to the physicists of our times. Albert St. Georgi, Alexander Gurevich. Well, we had Jagdish Chandra Bose, Nicholas Tesla, right? And then all our great pioneers who gave birth to the very dimensions of quantum understanding. So again, by the principles of gas discharge visualization, these were Krishna's deep in, to me, all of life is light. Everything that we do is based on light. So to me, it was observing the nature of this light. So I look at datura flower on the left-hand side. I look at beautiful daisies, put them on the research platform of the big GDV, and we bring this. Why? Because ultimately it is to inspire, enrich, and empower each and every one to that recognition. There is no disconnect, there is no disassociation, because there has never been disassociation. It is a construct of our conditioning. And if we are to really grow, if we are to emerge, We cannot do that if we tap into that from an earlier formative period and seek to use that in the way forward. We have to see with this inner eye, which is the cultivation of what was the insight that took place in this lockdown period. It's glorious. So it's your footprint, the inside out awareness. Bioelectrography measures electron configurations inside of complex molecular systems, revealing that we are light beings. And of course, we all are very conversant with the nature of the science. So to me, I call this a holy science. To me, it is also a spiritual science, because science bereft of wisdom creates and has created what we are all witnessing around the world. But more important, outside, we are witnessing that inside of us, because we ask the big question, who am I? Do we really understand that deep and depth of question? Well, insights come from such technologies. Not only that, now, if we say the thoughts we think is the world we create, do we not influence the molecules in the air around us? These molecules, they create excited electrons that are closely related to ATP with active oxygen, which is the basis of energy in vivo, which means that it's already within us. So this wonderful Sputnik of a sensor or environmental sensor is a deep, insightful dimension that provides the depth of being, providing us the ability to record the way we interface in environments and how we can collectively raise the bar to which all of life across this beautiful planet that's just so tiny in the spectrum of, look at the Milky Way, and then you go beyond. We are just that tiny little speck, and look at the kind of disassociations that we have created within ourselves. Well, time out now. We require to foster integration. This is a science to foster integration. So we talk about the cosmos, which is a magnetic empire, a field, earth, electric. Together they create a magnetic field which flows in, and you can see from these configurations, it comes, it flows in, the same thing as it does to the earth. The earth is a living body. The earth also has energy centers, as the chakras. These are not some hypothesis. It is very precise, all the way from the Schumann frequency to the bandwidths of information that we stream within us. That connect is where we tune ourselves to. And look how elegant and how complex is our system. Flow of meridians, in-out flows, the same thing transmitted into a battery that can provide the electricity that keeps us all functioning. So the principle of particles and waves, so we talk about the biobell registers the movement and excitation of the particles in the atoms sphere. Well, that's a pun on the word, but every object in the universe is subject to multiple cycles of varying wavelengths and amplitudes. That was with a dear being, his name is Dale Pond. Then we talk about the flowed cycles. We see the nature of evoked photons, how the biowell tracks our rhythms. See, so I'll just read this passage out. Life being electric, like the moon, its energy goes through phases when there is more energy expressed. This is how electric cycles through the cells there, and you are a cell. Your field, all fields move through an electromagnetic field. It all about rotation and where you are in the spin cycle. This is why some days you feel more tired, more energized. You can see, so these are what we observe now in our charts as biorhythm cycles. So you see how sequenced we all are, how integrated we all are. So we had a grand experiment initiation that was initiated by Sp.B from Jerusalem. Dear Lynn McTaggart was the guide who guided this big peace, Middle East peace initiative, which has now been made into a film called The One Field. So you can go look that up. And her whole vision in here that we are one field. And this was a world peace intention initiative. And these images that you see on the right-hand side, all of them is the response of water, response of the behavior of water, and what transpired. And I conducted this experiment here in Bangalore. It was 2 years ago. And did it here in Bangalore, live streaming from Jerusalem. Well, it was very, very clear, very, very observant, and it is not something that we are here to hypothesize and discuss. We have been involved in such experiments from the early 2000s, Konstantin, myself, and then our group just kept on growing with Gary Schwartz at University of Arizona, then Lynn McTaggart, then Dean Radin. And so like this, we kept on. Then Roger Nelson coming together, William Tiller, and we kept growing and expanding. Bruce Lipton, all this for one clear sequence. We can, when we transmit in that space, loving space, in gratitude, these thoughts travel, nothing can stop it. It will go and seed itself in those neurophysiologies like this that are ready to receive, then that is seeded there, then to manifest it and bring it to fruition. Well, that is our highest purpose of being, is we are embodiments of light, even in darkness. Emptiness that is devoid of light, there is light. That was a take home from this magnificent peace experiment and the response of water, which was Krishna's contribution to the film. Can love be measured? Well, absolutely. Absolutely. This was an experiment that was conducted by Konstantin. I think it goes back to maybe 1998 or 1999. They had two people in two different buildings, and they had them monitored, and then using the GDV at that time, one transmitted love to the other, and you can see that little dot is being transmitted and it is being received on this side in the emotional heart center. How much more can we say? The capacity of the human is the evolution of the human transforming to the light body, the whole light body. So when we come to all this, the light body in a organization of body of water. Why water? Our cells are water. We talked about the tensegrity structures earlier. These are cell modules that have the capacity to retain information, transmit information. So like mantras, when we chant, that's exactly what takes place because they are frequency waves. So similarly, my involvement in the water domain began almost over 20 years ago in not only first studying the energy of water before the word structured water was even coined or even developed, to then contributing in the development of such devices that can be then brought forth and to service to society. So there are lots of studies, and these have gone across global platforms in which I have immersed myself into, all across South America, North America, Canada, all across Asia, and Europe. And the work continues. This was also a very powerful experiment that was done. You can see the leaf here on this side was a leaf that was on the plant, and this similar leaf was subject to loving vibrations, and loving vibrations as mantras from the Rig Veda. You see how we very clear expressions. Here we talked about everything is light. So this is my garden in Taos, New Mexico. And what you see, the image on the left-hand side, is the beautiful tulip, the flower, the tulip flower. And it's like an angel that is in flight. And what is Krishna doing? It is receiving the great nourished intelligence of the tulip. This was in along the Mekong River. And here along the Mekong River, a lovely tribe of people with whom I'm sharing the oils, essential oils, and the prana of the essential oils, which is another whole area of my involvement and immersion for well over almost 4 to 5 decades, all the way from distillation and extraction of the essential oils. And then, of course, we talk about frequency, vibration, how they are then utilized so that the tuning of breath amplifies your quanta, energetic quanta, so that our connect is seamless, which means less entropy and optimal, not performance, but optimal creativity. This was again excerpts from an ayahuasca ceremony. This was in Brazil almost 10 years ago. And we see the left is the photon information of the ayahuasca, sacred liquid of ayahuasca. Then all the way to the last breath in this finite form. So in this finite form, we can see down at the bottom, we see a healthy person's energy finger imprint as one is nearing a transition phase, and one has after the transition phase. This is a deep insight which Constantine has published a beautiful book called Light After Life. If many of you haven't read it, you may want to get it and certainly take part with it. So then my deep involvement over here, deep involvement comes very, very close to doing big readings with sages here in India, like sages in Brazil and shamans in Peru, and like this across various parts of the world. So this was what we call a Mahayagam that went on for 81 hours non-stop in a fire pit that was 18 inches long, 18 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 3 feet deep, where these fires, and we were doing studies. This was a collaborative project with the Vivekananda Yoga Science University, where also I am closely involved as a visiting professor. And this was a deep exploration of understanding the depth of how vibration through mantras, fire ceremonies, not only shift the equations of incoherence, but begin to transmute and create clean air domains for us to intake. All this because it was a big project. We got the government involved also. Then also with further explorations with lovely beings, you see on the left-hand side is dear Eliza Madadalian, lovely, lovely light being who lives in Canada, northern Canada, northwestern Canada, Vancouver area. And that is Eric Pearl, who was downloaded back in the early 90s, published a book called The Reconnection. And so we were involved in very deep studies with him to really reveal how it's not about miracles happening, but how when we are tuned to the source field, natural occurrences is for life to thrive, for all. Then, again, what I was sharing in the decades of my immersion into all these sacred sciences, it was very clear, the bringing forth of wisdom and knowledge. Wisdom and knowledge blended together evokes a rhythm that just creates an outcome, and this natural outcome is a renewal of life, which is the sacred science itself. Then, doesn't this call for all of us to awake and awaken? So the three core principles, which has been to me a deep connect, are three: the inspiration, the empowerment, and the enrichment. You begin, and as you get, you're seeding these inspirations, you then are being empowered with these inspirations, and by enriching, you are manifesting them. Well, that's how we can all begin to use the science and utilize the technology in our life, rather than allow the technology to get the better of us, because we can go into lots of other detail related to the frequencies, 50, 60 hertz technologies that is out of sync. But again, remember this, when humankind attains a higher vibration, the lower vibration disappears unto itself. This is the very seed of natural law. So, what are we then really providing and evoking within all of us? We are raising the bar. It is the very structure of how we raise the bar that naturally begins to align, and in that sequential alignment, it proliferates, like we would call the degrees of separation. Well, that kind of tipping point is where we are all at, that tipping point. And this great lockdown period that has occurred in what we have all witnessed is evoking that, which is again my personal message. And I can share the way what I've observed from it. So, the renewal of the spirit, it's elemental. Because the closer we are to nature, the closer we are to the source. And how else can we but address that when we look directly into air, water, and light? So, very simple as it sounds, isn't it? We have the elements, the GDV2, the biowell, they use their sensors. We register the elemental aspects of nature, micro to macro, all levels of nature operate within the same field of the fundamental forces. And that is elemental. So we look at the alchemical states of occurrence. Nature gives us the spins, the cycles in all the dimensions. See, these elements, they regulate from planets to people. What does the world of bioelectrography do? It is able to measure these diversified states. So in Ayurveda, we call them doshas. Dosha of Vata, dosha of Pitta, dosha of Kapha. See, so Vata would be the air element, Pitta would be the fire element, Kapha is the water and the earth element, and all of those flow within us. So hence we can also determine what our states are. Are we not all in this together as the dynamic matrix of life? So in all these spaces that Krishna has immersed himself into the research and the continuum is the dynamism and the power of water, air, and light. And most importantly, it is in implementing these three in a synchronous union, which revives the life in the cells of each and every one to thrive. We are, well, 99.9% water at a molecular level. Water reflects, it holds memory, it circulates information. This is the most sacred substance of the universe. It is abundant in all of nature. It's a primordial soup. So the technology of the GDV uses the water vapor and carbon capsule in a carbon capsule, which is what we are, so we can experience that which can be manifest in physical reality. What elegance, isn't it? The elegance of life fully expressed. So we talk about living water. Earlier we talked about the memory of water. See, living water, it organizes, it creates, it reflects, it stores. So look at the iterations and iterations of this grand being, water, of which each and every one of us is. So we always see everything as solutions. Even what we may consider to be the most adverse, always we find solutions, because what does water do? If you throw a big boulder in its pathway, it flows around it, creates and evokes a harmonic. Well, for us, it is metaphors of life, the way we are able to navigate them in all our interfaces, in all our interactions. Well, Krishna has been communicating. That's a vibration, isn't it? That vibration comes from the voice. It's a cymatic wave. And this grand cymatic wave creates harmonic architectural patterns, structured architectural patterns that breathe in and breathe out and pulse in and pulse out. What a elegant ecosystem we live in, both seen and unseen, when we tune ourselves to the awakening of this pineal and the third eye. So we hone in right to the cell, because this intelligence is already imprinted into the cell with all the necessary formulae. We have nothing to do except recognize it, tune ourselves, be your own practitioner, and limit ourselves from creating dependency. Live that inspiration, live that empowerment, live that enrichment. And it is through our interconnected relationships, first inside our own microcosm, which is understanding thyself. Then we charge. And what does it naturally do? It amplifies. And all of us, we are involved in one of the most sacred science over here in all of humankind at this particular point in time. What a gift that is. It's an immense gift. So we fuel the cells for the mind kind, which is exactly what we do. We fuel the cells through our communication, through our pathways of communication. We talked about the thoughts we think is the world we create, isn't it? So the quality of the thoughts that we begin to take in, refine, transmit, it is how we also communicate what we do. Very critical. So mind moves matter, It is a state of mind. It is an alchemy in motion, continuous motion. So, what do we also see? Intensity spikes the system for better or worse. Throbs, pulsations. The photons reflect the bioenergy of the entire body. What are we gathering from the fingers? Biophoton emissions, right? And look at this. And this is a general indicator of all health seen in physical domain. So, the DNA molecules are but molecules dancing at a frequency that pulses to the vibration of a unification of what we would call the unified field. For those of you who really want to go deep into this area, maybe if we have a Q&A, like after all this is over, and you write to me, I can guide you and point you in some directions that has been deeply and insightfully researched and published. So, just as yoga, today we look at yoga, right? The word yoga, from the time when the present Prime Minister of India, Bharat, brought forth to have a World Yoga Day, which was right around the bend, the 21st of June. So, just as yoga is a benchmark in the world today related to wellness, the rich context of the depth of the term yoga is sparsely known, as are the rich elements of air, water, and light. Because we look at things from the surface. We may go a little deeper, but we still haven't touched the source. Yoga, the art, the science, and the spirit of yoga is to live in the source, what we would call living at the source. So again, we talked about this, and again, most of what Krishna shares is not only from having gathered inputs, but also from direct immersion. Direct, which is your personal evolution. And through that personal evolution, we begin to evoke that which unifies the great intelligence. So again, my total immersion into the elements from the inside out has evoked and birthed the vision of the HUE-MAN evolution. So the yoked yoga, with the spirit of the elements, life is alchemical. And what do? You can transcend and then be unbounded. When we are unbounded, guess what happens? We are unified. And when we are unified, we collectively thrive. In the Atharva Veda, there is a passage. And in this passage, it clearly has a beautiful, clear communication. We breathe the same air, we live on the same planet, we see the same sun. We can all choose to collectively live together, or we can miserably perish together. What is the choice? So, what is your state of being? When we look at the measurement of the state of being, we can ask the big question, what is your state of being? And hence, from there, we now merge into the Science Information Spirit Congress that deeply incited itself into dear Constantine in a vision that he had, is ultimately science for the upliftment, for the benefit of society, and for all of us across, and every one of the BioWell users across the world. Here is a take home, is live enriched, inspired, empowered, and transmit it with lots abundant love. With that, I shall exit from here, stop sharing, and namaste. And it has been a great delight and honor and in gratitude to all of you. Namaskar. Hari Om.